2022 was proclaimed by the UN as the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture, or IYAFA. ICSF used this as an opportunity to hold workshops in Asia, Latin America, Caribbean, Africa, and Europe through 2022-2023 to flag challenges faced by small-scale artisanal fishers and fish workers in the sector and to explore a way forward.
An important contribution of the small-scale fishery guidelines is that bring in the human rights dimension. So we don't only talk in terms of the quantity of fish, the processing techniques, but we also talk about the dignity of the people involved. What are the rights of these people? So it's very important to see the individual and collective human rights of fishers, fish workers, and fishing communities.
Within this context, the lack of secure tenure rights is a serious issue. Fishers need recognition of tenure rights to the spaces they use, because fisheries, along with land and forests, are central for the realization of human rights, food security, poverty eradication, and sustainable livelihoods. To prevent conflicts, there is a need to consult with fishers, indigenous peoples, and local communities and recognize their traditional and customary rights.
The first step, I think, is to document and map what is actually there. How are fish workers actually making use of the coast and of the sea? And what kind of rules do they have themselves? And can we make that clear to others? Can we document that? Because if it is not documented, it is difficult to prove to government that you are actually there. That is the second point, that you need to obtain recognition for the law which is there, the tenure system which is there, needs to be brought to the attention of the public and the government. Thirdly, tenure rights are not just, they need to be implemented day after day. It is a question of maintaining them. You cannot say one day we have a rule prohibiting the use of scuba diving equipment, for instance, and then the next day you don't have that rule. If you have a rule, you have to also enforce it.
While fish workers in Vietnam enjoy tenure rights due to a law passed in 2017, Cambodia still faces some difficulties. In Malaysia, there are specific exclusion zones for small-scale fishers where others are not permitted. In Penang, the fishers' organizations have even been able to stop a land reclamation project. Bangladesh has robust laws on paper, but these are poorly implemented. In Myanmar, tenure rights of fishers have to be renewed every year. In Sri Lanka, India, and Pakistan, the fishing communities find it difficult to gain recognition for their customary rights, and the development of coasts for the tourism industry often leave fishers and fish workers without their traditional spaces.
In Ghana, the traditional tenure rights allows access to fishing grounds only through registering through the chief. So this is sort of the customary methods of granting tenure rights in Ghana. In Gambia, in Uganda, in Sierra Leone, and the Seychelles as well, there is open access to their natural resources, except around MPAs, but they basically have the right to fish anywhere within the country. I think the only country that was not part of this was South Africa.
IYAFA stresses the importance of allocation and raising awareness about tenure rights to land and water bodies, and further strengthening the capacity of local communities. One of the focal points of discussions of IYAFA workshops was on ensuring the rights to access and use of marine and inland waters, as well as coastal and riparian lands. Secure tenure was essential along the entire value chain, from accessing the fishing grounds to securing access to fisheries resources and the market.
Will these communities survive in future? And will the children be able to become confident fish workers? Could it be that the problems of tenure are the main reason our fisher friends thinking of leaving the fisheries?
The issue of gender equality and women's role in fisheries resonated through workshops at all locations.
Tantangan yang dihadapi oleh perempuan nelayan di Indonesia yaitu aktivitas perempuan nelayan yang menangkap ikan, kemudian kerang, kemudian bagaimana memasarkan, itu belum dilihat sebagai pekerjaan oleh keluarga, oleh komunitas, oleh pemerintah. Karena menurut pandangan masyarakat, pekerjaan utama perempuan adalah mengurus rumah tangga.
विशेषतः महाराष्ट्र में मच्छी बेचने का काम महिलाएं ज़्यादा करती है, तो मच्छी बेचने के लिए मार्केट्स नहीं है और जो मार्केट्स है उसमें सुविधाएं नहीं है. फॉर एग्जांपल शौचालय, स्वच्छता, पीने का पानी की समस्या है. और अंडमान में भी महिलाएं जो रास्ते पे बैठती है उसको पुलिस उठा के लेके जाते हैं. हमारे यहाँ भी किधर रास्ते पे बैठती है महिला मच्छी बेचने के लिए तो पुलिस उठा के लेके जाते हैं.
Me llamo María Vales, soy mariscadora. En el marisqueo son 220 mujeres y 30 hombres, pero bueno, yo hoy aquí no vengo a hablar de mi faceta como mariscadora, sino como patrona mayor de la cofradía. En Galicia yo fui patrona mayor durante 8 años. En estos momentos hay 3 patronas mayores. Yo llegué a ser la única de la ría de Arosa. Ahora hay otra, de otra cofradía. Y cuando empecé de patrona mayor, ahí sí que sufrí discriminación, porque de mariscadora no tienes ningún tipo de discriminación, tanto del marisqueo a pie, del marisqueo a flote, como del sector de bateeros que llevamos nosotros en la cofradía. Pero cuando llegas a gobernar a hombres, ahí llega la discriminación.
We have also experienced that in Tanzania, fish for sex or sex for fish, however way you call it. But it has also let women be insecure, even when you go to fishing grounds that are not quite accessible. But restricting women in particular, their freedom of accessing fishing grounds have decreased household food security to the detriment of their families, but also has entrenched marginalization.
In the Latin American and Caribbean countries, the group agreed that there must be specific training for sexual violence, drugs, alcoholism, and conflict resolution. Technologies need to be adapted for women. Unwritten traditional rights need to be recognized. The group responses led to the creation of the Action Plan for Women in Small-Scale Fisheries in Latin America and the Caribbean.
Recognizing time limitation of women is very important, because they have other responsibilities. How do we make sure that those responsibilities are also taken care of? Women also need to take part in technology development, not only learning technology, but technology development which would be suitable for them. It's very important to include in the fisheries budget to support women's post-harvest activities. Not only fishing activities, but post-harvest is also very important.
Another issue common to countries in Asia and Africa is the marginalization of fishing communities to the extent where they are deprived of basic essentials that other communities take for granted.
For the case of the Lesab, it's a bit exceptional. It's a bit, pitiful because they are living in the floating village and it's far, from the shore, from the bank, and from the center, or from the area, the crowded area. And most of the time, they did not really access to all these kinds of social development facility and services. Most of them, they do not have proper sanitation and drinking water, and they just, let's say example, for drinking, they just take the water from the lake and then drink, directly. And sometimes they also boil, and they have some kinds of purification machine to purify, but not all of them that they can really afford, to these kinds of services.
Residents fishing village near big cities has partial facilities of gas, electricity, sanitation, school and education institution. As other part of country, city are divided between urban rich, middle class and poor areas. Most fishers are living poor areas. Most school are without proper washroom and waters. Even there is no drinking water. Children bring water from their own home. Water scarcity is everywhere, but fishers' resident areas are worse affected. Water come once a week, some areas.
We have a pollution of the water bodies, particularly the inland fisheries. I don't know how it is with marine, but inland fisheries, I think it's one of the sector where it faces a lot of pollution. We have fishing communities that are settling near the lake. They don't have a latrine, communities lack basic amenities. There's no waste management, nothing. So that means all these effluents are going into the lake and they are affecting the ecosystem, how the fish produce, destroying breeding grounds. We have factories that are being built near the lake. They power everything into the lake. So all these are factors which are actually contributing to destroying the ecosystem, but also affecting the availability of fish so that everybody can have sufficient fisheries resources.
In Bangladesh, even though 20 million people are involved with this fisheries sector, but we are seriously lack of strong fishers organization. This is very unfortunate. And we believe that farmers organizations can play a very vital role in strong advocacy to influence policy implementation, policies and laws. We have a lot of very good policies and laws. We need to have a very strong advocacy from the fishers organizations for the better implementation of these policies and laws.
Unfortunately, communities like fishers particularly who are socially outliers and therefore their ability to influence mainstream politics is limited. They become subordinates, very low-level subordinates of the political leadership in that party. And they are more or less servants of that party and leaders rather than representative of fishers.
A major threat to small-scale fishers is the blue economy that has displaced people through oil and gas development, construction of hotels, and other activities. The question is how to balance the path to privatization while holding on to culture, identity, and food. Solutions lie in developing policies that protect fishers from being evicted from their traditional coastal lands and marine areas. With global warming and the crisis of climate change looming ahead, the challenges for small-scale fishers seem to be only compounding.
I'm in an area where there is climate change to the extreme, so it's very, very warm. We have a lot of tropicalization with marine species, so a lot of species are coming into the Mediterranean through the Suez Canal and affecting the fisheries. So along with tropical fish, which are beautiful and in aquariums, there was also tropical algae. There is no small-scale fisheries either because of the expansion of these tropical algae, which are toxic. Therefore, there's no more fishing areas here.
In Uganda, in the inland fisheries, we were experiencing the challenges of climate change in the fishery sector. The water levels of the Lake Victoria rose, actually on all water bodies in Uganda, Lake Kyoga as well. Lake Albert as well was, the water levels got so high. The infrastructure for the communities, houses, businesses, everything was destroyed. There was that big fish, a massive fish death of the Nile perch particularly. So it was attributed to the changes in the temperature in the Lake Victoria.
Through these discussions, a number of solutions were proposed to mitigate the challenges faced by small-scale fish workers. These include better collaboration between fishery organizations and stakeholders, strengthening artisanal fisher organizations for better representation in demanding rights, recognize the occupational health-related problems of fish workers, especially women, appointment of women fishers to higher management levels within organizations, a proper demarcation of fishing community territory that is not used by development projects, tourism, etc. Prevent industrial fishing from edging out artisanal and small-scale fishers. The International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture, IYAFA 2022, was an opportunity to highlight the importance of small-scale artisanal fisheries and aquaculture for our food systems, livelihoods, culture, and the environment. IYAFA aims to motivate relevant stakeholders to ensure that the end of the year is the beginning of a new era of support for small-scale fisheries and aquaculture.
We can dream that we sit together and make the right decisions guided by justice, the right ones to heal the earth. Find the seed where it had almost been forgotten and offer it to the youngest one. Help them take care of their roots, water them, and enjoying watching a new era grow through everything. Maybe we have to look where we haven't looked before. Put ourselves in the skin of the fish.